Hello, welcome back to Happy Heart 1111. Today's video is based on a comment which I received in one of my short video which was about solar flares, ascension, the great awakening, and in today's video I'm going to answer or explain everything about the solar flares in a somewhat scientific manner but in a simplified form as much as possible. So please make time for this video so that you can listen to this video attentively and understand this whole concept or this whole phenomena about solar flares and other things related to this phenomena. And let's start today's video. So the topic for today's video is all about solar flares. Today's video would be more about the scientific explanation or how this whole event is taking place, what is the reason, and all the other details related to it, which I'm going to explain you in somewhat simpler words. I will make another video after this video which would explain the spiritual significance of solar flares, which is helping in the great awakening of humans on this planet. And that would be a separate video, so stay tuned for that one also. But let's start first with the scientific explanation of this event called solar flares. So we all know that sun is a star, the brightest star in our solar system, and it helps us to sustain life on this planet. The plants, animals, and humans, everyone need sunlight to sustain their life. So let's start with the characteristics of sun. Now, sun is a big ball of gas, is a giant ball of gas. A gas is made up of atoms, and atoms consist of positively charged bundle of particles called nucleus and negatively charged particles called electrons. So, gas is made up of atoms. Any gas you call any name like helium, hydrogen, or oxygen. It is made of atoms, and atoms have negatively charged particles and positively charged particles. The positively charged particles are called nucleus, and the negatively charged particles are called electrons. Now, when the sun is in a low solar activity phase, or when these solar storms or any kind of solar activity that happens on the sun is less, the atoms in the sun or atoms in the gases present in the sun, they have neutral or no charge because the nucleus and the electrons are tightly stuck together. They are very compact, or they are packed tightly together. So the negative charged particles, that is the electrons, and the positively charged particles, that is the nucleus, they kind of nullify each other, and overall atoms have no charge or they are neutral. But when atoms become so hot due to the heat buildup in the sun, that the nucleus and electrons split apart. They were compactly packed together, but now because of the heat, the negatively charged particles and the positively charged particles, they are moving away from each other. They split apart, and due to this reason, the gas which was neutral without any charge becomes a plasma. Plasma conducts electricity, and magnetic fields may pull it or push it away. So sun is made up of plasma. Plasma because when the atoms of the gases present in the sun gets heated up, the negatively and positively charged particles present in the atoms, they split apart and they take the form of plasma, which are charged, and it conducts electricity. It has electricity in it, and the magnetic fields of the sun, which are twisted and entangled, they don't have any specific shape or path, they pull the plasma or push it. The layers around the sun is sun's atmosphere. So there is a layer around the sun, just like earth has different layers like ionosphere, troposphere, stratosphere. So in the same manner, sun also has a atmosphere around it, and that layer is called corona. Now, the corona is much hotter than the surface of the sun. The surface of the sun is less hotter or less in temperature as compared to its atmosphere, that is the corona. The hot environment of corona causes the sun's particles to shoot out of the sun. The atmosphere of the sun is heated up, and the plasma or the particles which are present on the sun, they are like shooted out, pushed out of the sun, escaping from its own gravity. This stream of plasma is called solar winds. So the solar winds are basically the stream of plasma that is ejected out from the corona or the atmosphere of the sun into the solar system, and this is called solar winds. Solar winds engulf the entire solar system. It takes less than a minute to circle the earth. When there is a solar wind, that is, the sun ejects a stream of plasma due to heat in the corona, that is the atmosphere of the sun. That ejected plasma or the solar wind reaches earth in less than a minute, and solar wind is invisible, but it can be measured. It is not some kind of a light that you can see through your naked eyes. It is invisible and you can measure it, and it is a normal activity on sun. It is nothing special. It has nothing to do with any specific phase of sun or anything related to solar flares. That is a different concept. Now, how can we measure solar winds? Solar winds can be measured as it escapes the sun with the help of Parker Solar Probe. Now, Parker Solar Probe is a machine or a satellite kind of a instrument which has been sent into the space, and it is placed somewhere near the sun so that it acts like a weather station to measure the solar winds or the plasma ejected from the corona or atmosphere of the sun. Now, as I said, it is a normal phenomena. Solar winds are occurring without any special date or any special cycle or anything, and it's normal for solar wind to engulf Earth and other planets. That is the plasma that is ejected from the corona of the sun. It gets shooted out and it reaches all the planets in different time and at different intensity. Now, how does Earth remain protected from the solar winds which keep on happening? The Earth remains protected from the solar wind with the help of its own magnetic field. Just like the sun has its own magnetic field, in the similar way, Earth also has its magnetic field, which acts as a protective bubble and protect itself from the solar winds and its harmful impact. And this magnetic field is known as magnetosphere of Earth. Solar winds are moderate and a continuous process. As I said, it keeps on happening. It has nothing to do with any specific phase of sun or any specific cycle. But during solar storm is different from solar wind. During solar storm, there is huge explosion on sun which releases big clouds of plasma. In solar wind, the plasma ejected is of less intensity. However, in case of solar storm, the sun experiences huge explosion and it releases big clouds of plasma, that is the charged particle which happens due to the heat buildup on the corona of the sun. These are called coronal mass ejections. Coronal mass ejections are the solar storms which we are experiencing currently on our sun. The sun is also a giant magnet, and during solar winds and coronal mass ejection, the charged particles, that is the plasma, can travel easily, and these magnetic fields interact with Earth's magnetic field. The sun's magnetic field and the Earth's magnetic field interact with each other, and this causes disturbances which leads to space weather situation. Just like Earth has its own weather, in the same manner, there is something known as space weather, which is caused due to the interaction of the sun's magnetic field and the Earth's magnetosphere or the Earth's magnetic field. And this happens because when the plasma that gets ejected, it travels easily through the magnetic field and it like interacts with our magnetosphere and it causes disturbances. Interaction between Earth's magnetic field or magnetosphere and Sun's magnetic field result or causes space weather that can lead to power blackouts, interrupt communication, and premature falling down of satellites to Earth. So the satellites that we send in the space for different reasons, they have a lifespan. But due to this space weather situation occurring due to the coronal mass ejection, it can lead to premature falling down of satellite to Earth. It can lead to power blackouts or power outage, interrupt the communication, that is the radio blackouts. This interaction also result in beautiful light shows in the sky, that is northern lights, which is also known as aurora borealis near north pole, and southern lights, which is also known as aurora australis near south pole. So what we experience and enjoy on our earth on the northern pole and the southern pole as the beautiful lights, aurora lights, it is happening due to this interaction of the plasma that is ejected from the sun's corona, and it travels through sun's magnetic field and reaches our magnetosphere, and that interaction results in beautiful light shows in the sky. These disturbances in Earth's magnetic field is called a geomagnetic storm. So geomagnetic storm is basically the disturbances which the magnetosphere of Earth experiences due to the plasma or the charged particles that reaches and interacts with our magnetic field, and which travels through the twisted and entangled sun's magnetic field. Now coming to the main topic for today, that is what is a solar flare, how does it occur, and what are its different classes or types. Solar flare or electromagnetic radiation is an intense burst of radiation or light on the sun. So as I explained, that sun is not only a giant ball of gas, it is also a magnet, a giant magnet, and its magnetic fields are twisted and entangled. They don't have any specific shape or path. And the intense burst of radiation or light on the sun, which happens during the solar maximum phase or when the coronal mass ejections are happening frequently, and also because the sun has a lot of sunspots on its surface, it leads to electromagnetic radiation, which we are experiencing currently on our sun, which is called solar flare. And what is it? It's basically intense burst of radiation. It's a kind of a radiation. That is, the solar flare is a light or a photon abundant phenomena in which photon energy is released. Now, solar flare is an electromagnetic radiation, and this radiation includes variety of spectrum from X-rays, gamma rays, radio waves, ultraviolet rays, and even the visible light. Solar flare is the most powerful explosion in the solar system, and the biggest ones can have as much energy as a billion hydrogen bombs. Just imagine, billion hydrogen bombs would be equivalent to the energy that is being ejected or released in the form of solar flare when these are of high intensity. Solar flares are of different types depending on their intensity or energy output. How much energy are they releasing? How much intense they are in terms of the energy that is being released, that is the electromagnetic radiation, how intense it is when this whole process is happening. So it has different classes. Now, class A is the weakest form of solar flare. It is barely noticeable above the sun's background radiation. So it's like it happens in a manner where it would not affect our planet and us. Class B is also like of less intensity. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Class C is of then a much more higher intensity than class B. Now, class M is considerably strong and it impacts our planet and us. Class X is the strongest flare. Now, each class of solar flare is a tenfold increase in energy, which means suppose class A is 10 times stronger, then class B would be 100 times stronger, 10 into 10. Or we can say, like, suppose class X, as I said, it's the strongest flare, strongest form of electromagnetic radiation released from the sun. It is 10 times stronger than M and 100 times stronger than C, because it's in a sequence. First is class A, then class B, then C, then M, then X. So X is the strongest. Before X, there is M and C. And if X is 10 times more stronger than M, then X is 100 times, 10 into 10, 100 times more stronger than C. So you can imagine how solar flares would increase in intensity when it switches from class A to B to C to M and to X. From class A to M, it's further classified between numbers 1 to 9. So class A itself would have variation in its intensity ranging from number 1 to 9, and this number 1 to 9 is a upper limit and a lower limit for each class, and it is for class A to M, where 1 is minimum and 9 is maximum for each class. So each class can be of 1 intensity, that is the lowest, and it can reach to 9 intensity, that is the maximum. Now, the class X doesn't have any upper limit. It is the strongest flare, and imagine it doesn't have an upper limit. Other classes have a upper limit of 9, but X, it can go beyond the limit of 9 to infinite range, which we cannot really measure, or we cannot be sure about how much maximum it can go up to. The energy from solar flare travels at the speed of light. That is, it reaches Earth about 8 minutes after a flare happens. So, a solar flare happens, electromagnetic radiation is released from the sun, and it reaches the Earth after 8 minutes, which means by the time we see a flare, most of it affects our hair that is on the Earth can be felt. Solar flares can last for few minutes to several hours. So this electromagnetic radiation can occur for a few minutes and it can last for several hours. In 2003, an X-class flare happened, and that was a high intensity solar flare recorded, and it couldn't even be recorded to its maximum limit because of some technical glitch which happened due to the intensity of this class of solar flare. Solar flare happens every 11 years, where it shifts from solar minimum and solar maximum. Now I will explain further what is meant by solar minimum and solar maximum, so stay tuned. Solar cycle. What is a solar cycle? It is approximately 11-year cycle in which the sun's magnetic field flips. Just like we have heard that Earth's magnetic field would flip and it would cause a lot of catastrophic events or disaster or destruction or complete wipeout of humanity. But that is more to create fear among us. But on sun, every 11 years or approximately in every 11 years, the sun's magnetic field flips, causing changes in sunspot numbers. So there are some dark spots on the sun, and when the number of these sunspots changes on the surface of the sun, the solar cycle, or we can say there is a shift in the sun's magnetic field, it flips. And also there are other signs that solar flares would occur and other activity would be seen more frequently, such as coronal mass ejections. The current cycle in which we are is solar cycle 25. Now solar cycles must have been happening or occurring since the time sun has come into its existence, which we humans are not aware of as of now. But we have started recording this solar cycle since the year 1755. So since it's a 11-year cycle, according to that, the current solar cycle is the 25th solar cycle, and it began on December 2019 and is expected to peak around 2025 with sunspot maximum of about 115. So 2025 has already passed. We are in 2026, and there are certain differences in the expected number of sunspots on the surface of sun, and due to that, the predictions which were made regarding the amount of solar activity or the intensity of solar maximum period, how much it would be in terms of intensity or how long it is going to last, it has changed, or it is not according to the predictions that were made regarding the solar cycle 25. Now, what is a sunspot? Sunspots are closely linked to the solar cycle. So, if you have to understand when the next solar cycle would start, it is indicated with the help of solar spots that is visible on the sun. During this cycle, the number of solar spots fluctuates with periods of maximum activity of sun, that is called the solar maximum, characterized by many sunspots. So in a solar cycle, what happens is there are two phases. One is of solar maximum and one is of solar minimum. Now during solar maximum, the number of sunspots would be in large number, and during solar minimum, the number of sunspots would be less or none. So solar maximum has lots of sunspots, and that indicates how long the solar maximum phase of a solar cycle would be and of what intensity, how much of coronal mass ejections would happen, how much solar flares would occur, and of which class it would occur. The sunspots are temporary dark spots on the sun's surface that are caused by intense magnetic activity. So these are dark spots, these are temporary, and it is caused due to intense magnetic activity on the surface of the sun, because as I explained that sun is not only a giant ball of gas, it is also a giant magnet with twisted magnetic fields with no specific shape or path. The Earth's magnetosphere or magnetic field is a tear shaped magnetic field. You can check it on the internet. These sunspots are cooler than the surrounding areas, that is why they are dark, which is why they appear darker. Solar flares tend to originate from region of solar surface that contains sunspots. So sunspots are caused due to intense magnetic activity on the sun, and it is cooler than other areas or other parts of the sun. They are darker, and solar flares originate from the region of the solar surface that contains these sunspots. So sunspots are the cause of solar flares. These are darker, cooler portion of the solar surface, but the magnetic field on the sunspot is stronger. And due to that, the electromagnetic radiation, which is the burst of light or different spectrum of light, which is called solar flares, occur. As such, the number of sunspots can indicate the likelihood of solar flare eruptions, how intense it would be, of which class it would be, and how frequently it would happen, for which duration. It is all decided by the number of sunspots that can be seen on the surface of the sun, and that only helps us to predict that how long would be the phase of solar maximum when sun would be experiencing a lot of solar activity, and it helps us to like prepare or somewhat understand whether it would have any adverse effect on our planet, because as I have already discussed that it causes certain space weather situations or some disturbances such as power outage, radio blackouts, and early falling or premature falling of satellites to the earth. So for this cycle, that is the solar cycle 25, scientists had predicted that the solar activity in the solar cycle 25 would be weak, because in the previous solar cycle, which was the solar cycle 24, the solar activity was weak. So on the basis of that, as well as the number of sunspots that were initially visible on the surface of the sun were less, but in contradiction to their predictions made about the solar activity or the intensity and frequency of solar flares that would take place in solar cycle 25, it has been much stronger. The solar activity, we all know, you can check the internet through different experts who keep explaining and keep you up to date about the different solar flares that take place on a daily basis. It is stronger, it is happening more frequently and of different intensity, and that is why we are experiencing different levels of energetic changes on our planet and within our body and in our emotions, which I have already spoken about in many of my previous long video as well as short videos. Hence, we cannot say whether we have reached the peak of solar activity or not. That is, there is a time or there is a phase when the solar maximum has reached its maximum limit or peak, and after that it is said that it would start shifting towards solar minimum, where the sunspots would reduce in the number, and this way we can also predict when the next solar cycle would take place. But it was predicted that the solar maximum would be peaked in the year 2025, but in this year 2026 we can still see much more solar activity happening, and we can see different classes of solar flares that is occurring on the sun on a daily basis in different time periods, that is in a day's time. The sun is experiencing different classes of solar flares, and each solar flare, as I said, that is within each class there is also a different level of intensity from 1 to 9, so it keeps on shifting. And so we can say, because the sunspots on the surface of the sun has increased in number than what was expected initially, we cannot say that the year 2025 was the peak of solar activity, because it is 2026 and solar activity, solar flares, coronal mass ejections, the number of sunspots have increased, and we really don't know till how long it is going to stay in this solar maximum phase. And therefore, from the scientific point of view, where everything is calculated based on past data and other scientific instruments or other studies related to that phenomena, we can say that it's not necessary that everything that is explained or predicted from a scientific point of view is necessarily the most accurate prediction or is the universal truth about any phenomena. And therefore, from the scientific point of view, I have tried to explain this whole phenomena, what the solar flare is about and other things related to it, how it affects our planet, and what are the reasons, what are the different kinds. It is also important that you understand the spiritual reason behind this whole event, which is occurring currently and which started in the year 2019, somewhere in the month of August and October, when the solar cycle 25 started. We have been going through a major energetic shifts, because you all can agree with this point that everything on our planet, as well as the universe in which our planet is present, is governed by energy, and the energy can be in different forms, but a energetic shift happening in one celestial body, which has a lot to do life on earth, because life on earth is dependent on the sun's energy, is definitely going to impact the other forms of energy, that is your emotions, that is your body, the health of your body, that is everything around you, whether it is the social structure, political structure, everything. And that is why it is important to understand the significance of this phase or cycle that we are currently experiencing. And we should prepare ourselves, we should focus on absorbing this divine energy that is being sent to us in the form of solar flare, by first bringing ourselves to that level of energy or emotion or frequency in which we would be able to benefit from that expansion of energy that is being sent to us through this phenomena called solar flare, solar flash. Some people say that the event which is going to bring a shift in the human consciousness on our planet is associated with that high intensity solar flare, which means the X class flare of such high intensity that it would be very important for us to prepare ourselves so that we can sustain in that shift of large expansion of energy that will occur when that level of solar flare would be ejected or released from the sun. And many people have also said, again, these are predictions, it's not necessary that it is going to happen in that manner, that sun would become dark suddenly for few days, from 3 days to 1 week, and after that dark period there would be this whole large intensity solar flare coming towards Earth's magnetic field or magnetosphere, and that would be the event which people in the spiritual world are referring to, which is going to bring a shift in the level of consciousness and the consciousness of our planet. But if you try to understand it logically, it has nothing to do with the class of solar flare. It is about you becoming prepared and ascending in this process and able to absorb that high amount of energy, photon energy that is being released and reaching our earth, so that when that event or that big solar flare reaches, or that high class solar flare occurs, you are able to survive that kind of a huge amount of energy. So don't sit and think, oh, that is something which we don't know when it is going to happen, and whether it's going to happen or not, or when it will happen, then we'll see about it, because things will happen automatically and you would ascend, because the energy would be expansive in nature, or is meant to help you expand in your energetic body. It's not like that. If you are not going to prepare yourself in these lower classes solar flares by keeping your emotions in a higher frequency or level, when that high intensity solar flare would occur, it would be impossible for you to sustain it and go from the 3D world to the 5D world. So it's important that you focus on the inner work. The next video would be on the spiritual significance of solar flares, where I will explain you why the solar flares are going to help in the major energetic shift of our planet, and along with that planet, all the conscious souls who are involved in doing the inner work would also ascend from the 3D consciousness to the 5D consciousness, provided that you do your inner work, you are self-aware, you are trying your best to absorb these low level of solar flares, and you are able to sustain that expansion in energy that is occurring due to these solar flares. So I hope you understood the whole scientific phenomena behind solar flare and other terms and other concepts and other solar activities that are related to this term. And now you don't have this question that how come suddenly some people are talking about solar flare, and is it even real, or it is just a gospel or some kind of a philosophical or religious lecture given by new age spiritual people. So till then, keep doing the inner work, keep ascending, and I'll see you in my next video, in which I would explain the spiritual significance of the solar flares and how it will help all of us to ascend from the 3D world to the 5D world.